of protests. Joining me now is Dr. Aniseh Bassiri Tabrizi, Senior Research Fellow at the Middle East Security Studies in RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute. Thanks for joining us. What is your understanding of how widespread the protests are at the moment?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think we are seeing the demonstration gaining a momentum, obviously. We have seen in the past few days increasing the amount of protesters in the street, but also the areas from which these demonstrators are coming from. It's soon to tell how much they will last and how more widespread they will be. Obviously, we started seeing casualties, and that is something that is definitely concerning, and is also something that could jeopardize the willingness of demonstrators to go into the street moving forward.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the question, really, isn't it? Whether people will now feel intimidated and frightened, or whether this is really going to pose a risk to the regime.
Absolutely. I think what we have seen recently is that these kind of demonstrations have increased in the number of demonstrations across the past few years. The big one that we have seen in the past was in 2009, but over the past few years, we have seen this demonstration in 2017 and then in 2019 and now again. So obviously the gap between this demonstration is smaller than in the past, and also the topics of trigger for this demonstration is quite different one from the other. We go from the economic front to the social front, and now with the hijab, which obviously has been the trigger for this latest round of demonstration. However, I think for now it's really difficult to know whether this demonstration will pose a threat to the stability of the regime. We have seen the institutions being mainly in control with obviously the tool of repression, and whether that will be something that the regime will continue to use to maintain control remains to be seen. But so far it looks like this is what is going to happen.
What do we know about people's attitudes to wearing the hijab? And can you just tell us a bit more about the history of that within the regime and how the morality police work?
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, this has been a hot topic because we know that hijab has been introduced, the mandatory hijab has been introduced in 1979 with the Islamic Republic. We have not really seen the hijab as being the main trigger of demonstration, as I mentioned before. This is something new, but obviously there has been also, I would say, criticism towards the mandatory nature of this hijab before. So not this level of demonstration, but criticism. And so I think it's quite interesting to see this level of anger, which doesn't come just from women now. There are also men demonstrating. And there is also political figures who are joining in or criticizing the level of repression that the morality police has been using to maintain the control of the hijab. I think whether that will mean a change in the attitude is really difficult to say. I don't think that's likely to happen in the short term, but I think it might mean that these demonstrations are going to be more frequent and that the regime will have to use more of its control and to twist arm the people to basically abide by their own regulation. And that obviously will intensify the gap between the leadership and the people.
Dr. Aniseh Bassiri Tabrizi, thank you very much indeed.